Welcome back to CanHammer, everybody. Today's work in progress video, the night Castellan. Welcome back to CanHammer, everybody, your source for 40K from the Great White North. Today's work in progress is on the night Castellan. So I'm adding one of these bad boys just for fun. I have yet to assemble and paint a knight. I commissioned out my other knight, so I'm going to do this just for fun. And also I built a little Astra Militarum catechin list around one of these guys, which you'll see once I get this done, as well as some Bullgrins. So we're going to crack on and get this guy open, and let's see what's in the box. So inside this bad boy is this nice large, multi-page colored instruction booklet, like all the nice instruction booklets these days, with the little paint guide on the back and the data sheets. It's pretty nice. Then we got all the plastic bits and big carapace piece. It's looking pretty good. So I aim to airbrush a lot of this knight as a way of practicing airbrush technique. So I have to think very carefully about sub-assemblies and before I start gluing everything together. And magnetizing, obviously. So we're going to have to think carefully about that before we start putting this baby together. But yeah, here are all the parts. There's one giant foot, which is pretty cool. And there we are. Lots of transfers and a big base. So, and then also thinking making a slightly scenic base. I was thinking actually of using this crapped out Rhino that I have. Get him stepping on that. I'm gonna have to crush it somehow though. Not really sure how best to do that. Like get him denting it in at the back or something. Not sure. Maybe I'll just take a hammer to it. I don't know. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna do something with that Rhino, I think, as part of the scenic base. Something like that. Maybe I'll cut it in half or something. Have it buried in the sand like that. Anyway, that's the only thing Rhinos are good for these days, scenery. So we'll get on and start doing that and think about how we're gonna put this together. Alright, so I'm trying to get this Rhino here compressed underfoot. Here's the Castellan foot. It's gonna go like poof. Bash it in there. So at some people's advice, I've got some hot water, in this case boiling water, and here we go. See what happens. Steamy, steamy. Apparently it's gonna really soften it up, kind of like 4-drop resin, and allow me to squash it. Let's soak it in there for maybe, I don't know, 1 minute, half a minute, steaming me up. All right, it's been in there for a few minutes. And this plastic is as hard as ever. No give in it at all. So that's not gonna work. Maybe we'll get the hair dryer and try again. Nope, this is solid as a rock. Good old Rhino. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to like cut it and have like a piece of the Rhino on, like a buried Rhino, and then just have the leg a little bit raised on that. I think that's what I'm gonna do, because it's impossible to bend this. So without like a flamethrower, probably, like melting. Maybe I should put it on the gas hob. No, I don't want to toxify the house. So I think we're just gonna cut it and leave it at that. All right, nothing a large pair of cutting pliers can't fix. So I cut this thing, wrenched it open, This side came off, bent some panels. There's some loose bits here which I might put on, and I think I'll have my knight, boom, like just popped open this Rhino, and it's gonna have a leg, a foot there, and a foot there. I might move the whole assembly back or cut this one down a little bit because the base is not actually that big. But I think that's well on its way. So what I'm gonna do is I think I'm just gonna cut this piece down a little bit because it's a bit too big, or maybe I'll just take it off entirely and just put scrap pieces around here. Maybe I'll just do that, and then we'll get on and finish building the knight. It's gonna be tricky posing the legs with all this stuff here, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, just building the leg assemblies here. The one thing to note, if you're going to pose it, especially if you want to pose it other than standing pretty straight, like if you want one knee bent, this thigh piece comes with two little grooves there, and the leg piece actually has a little bit that sticks up there, which I should have showed you before I cut it off, but I just cut it off. Because if you don't cut it off, then you have to stick it in either straight upright or slightly bent. But if you want it to be more bent, then you're going to need to cut that little square off so you can have the leg more bent like this. If you want it even more bent like this, you're going to have to be creative and probably cut this cable right here because it's in the way from the leg being more bent, and then eventually this bit here will get in the way too, so you have to shave those bits off, which you can do if you want the leg even more bent, like if you want it to stand on top of the Rhino. But as it is here, it'll be fairly stable once you glue it, because this groove here fits into this thigh groove. You just have to cut the little square off that goes in there, so that's what I've done there. So that will allow me a little bit more flexibility with this posing. The other thing to note is that this assembly here between the leg and the foot does not have no leeway because of these pillars, these 4 pillars, which are slanted, so longer on the outside, longer at the front, so that its leg is back and that it's slanted inwards for the right leg and other way. Now this circular piece here with the holes in it, this piece here, actually is designed to go like this. I had it this way and it wouldn't fit. And there's little notches there, and they try and point this out to you on the instructions. These little notches tell you which way is the front so that it actually fits properly. If you do it the other way, it's not going to fit. So just a note on that. So that's that lower leg assembly done. And we're going to not glue on the thigh for now till we make the other side and get it all together with the crotch piece, and then assemble it all together with the base. So here's my legs built. I think I screwed up the bottom. It should be the other way around, but anyway, it looks okay. And yeah, so I just, before I put this crotch piece together, I just wanted to make sure I didn't need to magnetize, and it actually, it's not very stable yet, but you don't really need a magnet on that. I guess we'll see how heavy the top is on the bottom, but it swivels pretty nicely, but not too much. So we'll see. We can always put a magnet in later. But for now, it probably will stand up okay, just like that. So just letting these set, and then we're going to put them on the base, and then the legs will be done. Alright, some progress made on the knight here. That's just solidifying down on my base there with some extra Rhino bits strewn around in the big hull there. The top bit has been made with the little additions there, but I've not inserted the weapons. The 2 twin melta guns are here, will be painted separately. And that carapace will be painted separately, as will all the armor plates, so I haven't put any of those on. Here's the upper body with the head on there. The face plate, the head plate are not on. It will be painted separately. The little chest piece with the symbol on it will also be separate. Everything else is going to be on there. So these are all separately done components. Here's the plasma decimator and the volcano lance. And these are obviously going to be separate and painted separately, and then probably magnetized. Although, yeah. So that's interesting. So these come with a little bit that goes from this hole here to this knob, one on each side, which, although it comes with a little bit of give, you kind of have to glue it or else it doesn't stay. And then that stops this piece from going up and down. So these are completely articulating arms, back and forth. This bit twists here, left and right, and then this bit goes, so it's completely articulatable at 3 points. So if you put those little pieces on, it won't be able to do that. Similarly, a little piece that goes from the shoulder here through this hole to attach to the knight, I presume, will not allow you to articulate it. So if you want your arms to articulate and be completely posable, you leave those pieces off, I think. So I have. So these two arms are completely three-way articulatable, Reggie. So we'll keep going forward now. The next bit will probably be just the rest of the torso and yeah, shoulder pads and all the other weapons. So the Castellan and the Valiant come separate boxes, so I presume there's going to be a bit of a secondhand market for the other side's weapons. So if you magnetize, that will be a little bit easier without having to buy two whole knight boxes. So we'll have to see how it goes, but we'll keep going forward. Okay, this is my first time building a knight, so I don't know if this is how it normally is, but you don't need to magnetize the arm because you see in the socket it's hooked, and then you see in the weapon arm that there's got a slot and then a ridge. So actually, it's kind of hard to do this one-handed, but it goes in vertically, so you're never going to have the weapon like that, so it won't come out. Then it swings down, and that's it. Oh, sorry, wrong side. But you get my drift. So now the arm moves back and forth, up and down at the shoulder, freely without a magnet. And then if you want to change weapons, all you have to do, swing this up, and it detaches. Sweet! Thank you, GW. All right. Woohoo! Look at this. Pretty crazy. So this is basically all my knight pieces ready for painting. So the big pieces here, like these arm pieces. So I just made sure that with these shoulders on, you can still rotate the arms in and out, and you can, so that's fine. And then what I did was these separate armor plates, just to make them easier to hold. I left them attached and cut out the sprue bits, but I also left the number of the part on the sprue. So you see these ones, I left them attached, and then this is part number 21. So, you know, this one is part number 20, and it's still attached. And you know, these little bits here, these are part number 42 and still attached. And I tried to leave them just attached to areas that I wouldn't then have to touch up afterwards. And you know, these are the big leg pieces, and nobody's going to look at the underside of the leg piece, so I left it attached up there and cut off all the other attachments. And this is piece number 18, so it's going to work out pretty nicely. So we will be trying to airbrush this as much as possible. This is going to be a Custodes looking Castellan. So I'm going to make it mostly black with gold and red trim. That's kind of the plan. So I can play it in funless with Custodes or just for a different kind of look. So that's going to be the plan. We'll get on and get it undercoated. All right. So I grabbed myself some colors today. I got myself some more black. Then I got this next step up, this somber gray, which is like a blue black gray, and then a lighter color, this wolf gray. And then I already had an even lighter color. I have white, or I have this US Air Force light gray. So I basically, you know, I don't know how good this is. My idea was to highlight the black in the flat panels in the middle, so there, and the knob at the knee that sticks up like that, the high points, and keep some black in the shade and around the edges like that. My first real-time airbrushing a model other than painting catechin stripes, so yeah, I don't really know if it's good or not at this stage. It looks okay to me, but you know, yeah, I don't really know. It's cool, but it end up looking like the black is mostly gray in parts. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be, but it doesn't look very black. But I guess if you were to highlight the black, you would highlight it in these areas and it would look like that. And of course, that's just the first layer of highlight, so I'm gonna build it up to a more shininess. So I guess we'll try. It's an experiment, and worst comes to worst, I just spray the thing all over again. So like this is the perfect example here, where you can see the stripe down the middle where the light falls is where I put the highlight, down the middle, the raised surface. And so it does look like that, so yeah. Okay, well, anyway, we're gonna let it dry out and come back to it. Alright, here's second level highlights gone on with Wolf Gray. The leg parts look pretty good. Fairly happy with that. It's fairly hard to get as little spray as possible. Some of the bits are a little bit oversprayed, but that's okay. I'm going to try and blend it back together. I'm just trying to figure out how best to do that, to lessen the highlights a little bit. And I also sprayed these with the first level highlight at the top here. I got to do the second level on those guns. So going pretty well, much better than I expected. So what I'm going to do is so I just got to now figure out how to do a bit of a black glaze to sort of blend the highlights back in a little bit so it's not so bright. And then I think we're well on our way. Alright, so I went back over the shoulder with black, and then the dark gray, and then the light gray again. Sort of just did it again, and it looks a lot better now. Looks a lot better now. So happy with that. Also finished highlighting those two cannons. So I'm basically done with the black. I'm getting the glaze today, and then we'll keep working on the night. All right. So to tackle this issue of blending, instead of redoing it all, because I'm not sure I'll be able to do it any better if I did it all again, I'm going to try at some people's suggestions, and thank you very much everybody for your suggestions. I'm going to try and blend it in with a glaze. So what I've got is some glaze medium here and my black. I'm going to do, as suggested, 4 parts this, 1 part black, and then spray it on lightly, and we're going to see what happens. Alright, that's worked pretty well actually. It's blackened everything down, so it looks much more black than gray now, but you can still see the highlights there, and the transitions are a lot smoother. Pretty good. Pretty good. Very impressed by that. Okay, so we've got to let that dry. It's a little bit wet. And then I think what we're going to start to do, the question is whether or not I'm brave enough to put a final really bright highlight on. I'm not sure that I am, to be honest. But we'll have to see what this looks like when it's dry. Alright, been working on the plasma decimator here. So painted in the plasma area and the little glowing bulbs, and I've shaded that with Drakenhof Nightshade, which is the dark blue shade. Just add a little bit at the base of the bulbs there, so that when I highlight it, those little black areas at the dark blue areas at the base will show out. Painted in my kind of brass piping and symbols and stuff, and the Mechanicum symbol, so black and white Mechanicum symbol there, and on the back too. There we go. And added a bit of brass detail there in the cables and also in the sort of barrel there, just to pop it out a little bit. I think it looks great. Just waiting for this shading to dry, and then we'll finish off this arm, and that's gonna look pretty good. Alright, I'm calling this plasma decimator done. Just highlighted up the red a little bit, highlighted the silver, and the leaving the sort of Balthazar gold, kind of a deep bronze, and some Calendar Sky, then some Baharoth blue, and then some dry brush Baharoth blue, and then dry brush White Scar for the plasma effect. And yeah, not too crazy, just a little bit subtle, not too bad. There we go, one arm done. Okay, so I decided that this looks good enough. The enemy of good is perfect, and for first time, this looks pretty good. The highlights are there, but subtle. It looks mostly black still, and I think when all the other gilding and stuff looks on, it's going to look really good. So I'm going to leave the black as done and start working on the detail. Alright, a couple of more things completed here. The volcano lance, just detailed up with the brass and a few colors, and the little collar there, a bit of muzzle burn. Pretty straightforward, so that's done. So both arms are done. And then I spent quite some time picking out details on the middle internal chassis here. the face, the eyes, just picking out brass. I really like this contrast between the dark silver with the non-oil washed and then all the little brass wiring and stuff. It gives it a kind of burnished, classic, old school look to it. I'm not going to wash it or highlight it. It just looks good like it is compared to the kind of dulled down washed silver, which I'll end up dry brushing a bit of Stormo silver on. But picked out the two mechanical symbols there. Just picked out a lot of little brass details. Everything that I could pick out, I sort of picked out just to give it that bit of contrast. I think it looks pretty nice. There we go, all the little wires. So that's cool. That's the kind of internal chassis there done. So next we're just going to finish off some small little details like the missiles and the shoulder turrets, and then we're going to finish the armor plates. Okay, at the advice of some painting gurus, I'm currently just running some Nuln oil just along the edges of all the trim and into any creases between plates that I see, and just to make it kind of kick out a little bit more before I start to actually paint the trim. So just going through all the panels and doing that. I've got the helmet here, working on that, my little nubbins there, and I've since finished all the weapons. And the main chassis body, just put a dry brush of silver on top of there. And that's it. So I'm going to finish off these plates now, just running some Nuln oil along the recesses and trim. Alright, so I've spent about an hour and a bit masking. I've used this parafilm stuff, which I got off of YouTube. This guy called Moggy's Miniatures uses it to mask for airbrushing. It's basically wax paper that's stretchy, and it kind of just sticks to things by surface tension, and you can stretch it around and stuff. I find it pretty useful, and so I've just masked off everything that's not going to be gold. So all the trim is going to be gold, these little circles on the top, and then everything else I've covered up painstakingly. You can see here the panels here I've covered up, masked off as best I can. Applying the mask is pretty easy. It's just carving around the outside with a knife. It was a bit painstaking and not super accurate, so it's going to be a load of touch-ups. But yeah, but I think it's going to be okay. And I tell you what, at first I thought it's just faster, like you would think, to just paint it in. But it took ages because the gold requires, and this is with Retributor Gold base coat, requires 3 coats to get a solid gold on the black, which is really annoying. And then you make little things like, you know, the gold seeps over. Despite your best intentions, you're going to make these little slips, so you have to correct it anyway. And then if you're going to wash this and highlight it, then you risk getting onto the black again. And it's just not any faster. So yeah, so I got a couple of golds here. I got this glorious gold, and I've got this polished gold. It's hard to tell by the color which is closest. I'm thinking maybe that's darker and that's lighter. I'm going to spray them both and kind of see which one I like better. Probably this one's more like Liberator Gold, and this one's more like Retributor Gold, which is what I'm going for. So we'll see. We'll load it up and then we'll see. But now I can just spray bomb everything and it won't take very long at all. Alright, so here's the 2 golds. This is the polished gold. This is the glorious gold, and that's Retributor Gold. So this one's the closest for sure. Sorry, my airbrush switches on and off. So this is the closest for sure, so I'm going to go with the glorious gold. Here it is. Gold is applied. Took all of 5 minutes to do all this gold. So it was definitely worth struggling with the masking for an hour or so, because it would take me way longer than an hour to have painted all this gold by hand without getting on the black. So I'm gonna have to do some touch-ups, but I think that saved a lot of time. Alright, coming along nicely. These gold bits edges were then washed with Reichland Flesh Shade Gloss. I dried overnight and then just dry brushed it, just edges with Liberator Gold, just to lighten it up a little bit, because there's obviously, especially these corners here, gets pretty dark and brown. So it lightens it up a little bit, gives it a bit of a rustic gold. And then we're going to edge highlight that with Storm Host Silver just on the very edges. But first we're going to unwrap everything and do touch-ups. This little chest piece here, just edge highlighted it with the Storm Host Silver, and then starting to paint in the scroll there and put a little bit of silver on every rivet there. Just helps those pop out. Alright, so I've done some cleanup here. What I did is the sticky residue from the gloss Requiem Flesh Shade came off just with some saliva, some spit, and a bit of gentle rubbing. So it cleared up a lot of that across the whole model. There's still a little bits here and there, but it kind of looks a little bit like weathering. And then I cleaned up the edges where there's some gold spillover with a thin, or tried to be thin, line of black all the way around every trim piece. So it looks pretty smart. And then, so that was kind of these things done. And then I painted up some details on the turrets here. You see the silver bits there, and the barrels of silver. And I painted in the window and the Mechanicus lines. I put some more Nuln Oil shading into all these little lines and gaps between the vents and the armor plates, filled in some silver bits, stuff like that. And then these railings. And then now I'm going to go over the whole model with my Stormhost Silver as the final highlight. Then I'm probably going to put it together, and the top of it will be pretty much done. And then I'll put the decals, then I'm going to spray varnish all these armor plates, and then we'll put some decals on. Alright, the edge highlighting with the Stormhost Silver has really made a big deal. A big difference in bringing that gold out, you can see there. That's nice. Edge highlighting there. And I picked out all the rivets, and looks good. Here's the main carapace edge here. The Stormhost Silver has really done a good job in picking out the details there. Alright, so basically finished painting them. I'm going to varnish them up is the next step. I'll probably just use some spray varnish. Alright, I just varnished, coated the carapace parts with some art coat, and yeah, it looks good. It kind of melded the colors together a little bit, darkened it down just that little bit again, and just waiting for that to dry. Meanwhile, on this, I did dry brush some Stormhost Silver onto the metal parts, picked out a few details in brass, but generally just left it pretty plain. Painted the feet in black, and I've put another 2 coats of Nuln Oil on the wreck, as well as a coat of Agrax Earth Shade to give it that kind of browny, muddy, and then I'm gonna make it rusty. And so yeah, just slowly working up on that base there. I'm not sure what to do with the rest of the base, gravel or mud or grass or a mixture of all 3. We'll see how I feel, but that's the bottom part is coming along nicely. All right, look at this baby. The upper half is done. Got my melted guns on. They do swivel. My arms are fully articulated. Got the panels on. Got my little duders at the top. They come off so I can run 2 missiles or 2 cannons or whatever. And there we go. Looks nice. Doesn't look very black, but I guess it has a little bit more depth without being so black. And a little bit of streakiness on the varnish coat, but from far away it doesn't look too bad. So there we go. That's the bottom half done. And we're just going to finish the bottom now. And then when we finish that, we'll put all the plates on, and then this thing will be done. I'm quite happy with this. It's been a lot of work, painstaking, redoing stuff, learning on the fly with the airbrush, but I think it's turned out actually way better than I thought it would turn out. I'm pretty happy with it. So quite happy with that. Alright, here's the bottom half of the night done. Glued on these panels, which is very easy to do, obviously. So the base is basically, I took a Rhino and I cut it up with a giant pair of cutters, and then warped it with my hands, bent it out of shape, blah 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 blah, glued it there underneath that foot. These are just pieces from the Rhino. There's the panel in the middle of the Rhino, and this is the back ramp there. Just kind of glued those on, and then basically the Rhino, all this was sprayed silver with the legs, and then I coated this Rhino part, all the Rhino parts, in 4 or 5 coats of Nuln Oil to really darken it down. And then I coated it in 1 or 2 a couple of coats of Agrax to give it a kind of browny shade. And then I dry brushed it with Rust to give it that rustiness. I did that to all the parts. And then for the rest of the base, I basically, I need to finish off the feet actually. But basically I just did Astral Granite Debris, which is the gray texture paint. Then I put little patches of brown. The Sterling mud, you can see just these little areas of slightly different shade. That's the brown areas. Okay, and I kind of ran it up onto the edges of all these pieces to kind of make them just blend into the base a little bit better. And then I washed it all with Nuln Oil to start with, and then a light wash in certain places with Agrax. And then I dry brushed it very lightly with Terminatus Stone. And then I put these little tufts on, which are still drying. And that's it. That's the bottom half of the knight. We'll put it all together and come on back. Here it is. The big boy himself. The knight Castellan. Finished. Kind of tips over a little bit. There we are. So, that was a fun project. Super fun. I have the other turret here that I can just swap the weapons in and out. So 2 missiles and 2 turrets. But super fun project. Learned a lot about airbrushing, masking, shading, all this sort of things. Order of things to do things, and learned a lot on this project. It was supposed to be a learning project, and it definitely was. I think it turned out pretty good, all things considered. I still got to put some transfers on, but I'm waiting for some Forge World Custodes transfers, so just left it empty for now. But super fun project, and I actually think it turned out pretty well, all things considered, and very happy with this guy and ready to field him on the table. I might just have to put a magnet in the waist because it's kind of loosey-goosey right now, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's a beautiful project, great model, my first knight that I've painted, and looking forward to putting this badass on the table. Thanks for watching, guys. I know I don't put out as many work in progress videos anymore, just because I don't hobby as much anymore, because I have a lot of armies already. But coming up on work in progress will be Nagash and Legions of Death, Legions of Nagash. So do keep watching for work in progress videos. If you like this video, please click on the like button. Fancy subscribing to our channel here and supporting us on Patreon. So thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.